My father beat me unconscious in front of my children after I bought my son a toy instead of giving money to my sister. I secretly recorded it all, and my lawyer made sure he faced felony charges. I stood in my kitchen with blood running down my face, my daughter screaming in the corner, and my 8-year-old son staring at his grandfather like he'd just watched his entire world collapse. And all I could think was, finally, I have proof. The linoleum felt cold against my cheek. There was blood under my nose, warm and metallic, pooling on the white tile I'd mopped that morning. Ava's screams came from behind the kitchen table, where she'd wedged herself into the corner, knees pulled to her chest. Mason stood frozen in the doorway, still holding the empty toy box in his small hands, his face stuck in this confused expression that no 8-year-old should ever have to wear. My father's boot had connected with my ribs twice. The second kick came after I was already down, and I'd curled instinctively to protect my stomach. Those boots were Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine. Sophia had bought them for him last month for his birthday using money from the joint account he shared with Mom. The same account where my childhood college fund had mysteriously disappeared from years ago. The same account Sophia's apartment deposit had come from. You both don't deserve to breathe the same air as her. Dad's voice bounced off the walls of my kitchen. My kitchen, in my house, where I'd invited them for Sunday dinner because Mom had called 3 days earlier crying about how the family was falling apart and couldn't we all just try to get along. Mom stood near the refrigerator with her arms crossed over her cream cardigan, lips pressed into that tight line I'd seen my entire life whenever I disappointed her. How dare you waste money on that kid when Sophia needed it for salon equipment? The toy had cost $45. Mason had begged for that specific action figure for 3 months straight. Ever since he'd seen it at his friend's birthday party, he'd done extra chores without being asked, practiced his spelling words every single night, even helped Ava clean her room. The joy on his face when I surprised him with it yesterday made every penny worth it. Sophia leaned against my counter examining her manicured nails. Should have given it to me like you were supposed to. I told you last week I needed $300 for the new styling chairs.
She hadn't asked.
She'd demanded. Via text message that came through while I was in a budget meeting at work. Need $300 by Friday. Chairs going on sale. No please. No explanation beyond the chairs. No acknowledgement that I had my own bills, my own children, my own life. Uncle Frank appeared in the living room doorway, still holding the beer I'd handed him 20 minutes ago. He nodded slowly, his thick neck creasing. Finally, someone teaching her about family first. Your sister's always been too selfish. The irony of Frank calling anyone selfish would have been funny if my vision wasn't swimming. If Ava wasn't hyperventilating in the corner. If Mason wasn't staring at his grandfather with a look that would probably require years of therapy to process. Dad's hand tangled in my hair. He yanked upward, and my scalp screamed. The floor rushed away, then slammed back as he drove my face down. Something in my nose crunched. Fresh blood poured out, hot and thick. Next time you listen. Ava's screaming got louder. Through blurred vision, I watched Dad march toward her corner. She scrambled backward, but there was nowhere to go. He reached past her and grabbed the action figure Mason had set on the chair, still in its packaging. Mason had wanted to keep it pristine, had carefully placed it on his bedroom shelf before coming down for dinner. Dad's thick fingers tore through the cardboard and plastic. He walked to the trash can and shoved the toy deep into the garbage, mashing it down among the dinner scraps and dirty paper towels. Mason made a sound like a wounded animal. The room tilted as I pushed myself up. My hands left bloody smears on the white tile. Every breath felt like knives between my ribs. Something was definitely broken or fractured. My face throbbed in time with my heartbeat. But my mind had gone completely clear. I stood slowly, deliberately. Blood dripped down my chin and onto the blouse I'd carefully ironed that morning because Mom always commented when I looked sloppy. Everyone stared at me. Waiting for tears, probably. Waiting for apologies. For me to promise to do better, to put Sophia first, to remember my place in the family hierarchy. Instead, I smiled. The blood on my teeth must have looked grotesque because Mom's face went pale. Get out. My voice came out steady despite the copper taste in my mouth. What did you say? Dad's face flushed red, the familiar precursor to another explosion. Sophia laughed, sharp and cruel. Oh, now she's got a backbone. Little late for that, don't you think? I pulled my phone from my pocket. My hands were steady. Strange, considering the circumstances. I opened the security app, thanking God for facial recognition unlock, and turned the screen toward them. See that camera? The one mounted above the cabinets. It's been recording since you arrived. Every word, every kick, everything. The laughter stopped. Dad's face went from red to grayish. Uncle Frank set his beer down carefully, eyes on the floor. That's illegal. Mom's voice climbed an octave. You can't record people without permission. Actually, in this state, I can. It's my home. One-party consent. I'm the party who consented. I'd looked this up 6 months ago, after the last family dinner when Dad shoved me into the wall for contradicting him about politics. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave.
Now.
And you're never coming back. Oh, please. Sophia was already rolling her eyes. You've made empty threats before. If any of you contact me again, I'm pressing charges. Assault and battery. Child endangerment for traumatizing my kids. The video is already backed up to the cloud, and my lawyer will have a copy by tomorrow morning. Your lawyer? Dad barked out a laugh. You don't have a lawyer. I consulted with one 3 weeks ago, when you showed up to my workplace and went through my purse while I was in meetings. I realized then I needed legal protection. Tomorrow I'll formally retain her, and this video will be the first piece of evidence she files. Also, my office security footage captured your theft. My supervisor was very concerned about family members entering the building under false pretenses. Dad had sweet-talked the receptionist, said he was bringing me lunch, then rifled through my desk while I was in a conference room. He'd taken $120 and my emergency credit card. I'd reported the card stolen, but the cash was already gone. Watching his face process the reality of proof, of consequences, of a version of me he didn't recognize, filled something dark and hungry in my chest. You're being ungrateful, Mom started. Get out before I call the cops and have you removed. I held up the phone, finger hovering over 911. They left. Dad's Italian shoes squeaked on my floor. Mom clutched her purse like a shield. Sophia's sneer had finally disappeared, replaced by what might have been actual worry. Uncle Frank walked out without meeting my eyes.
The door closed.
I turned the deadbolt, then the chain, made sure they were both secure. Then I slid down the door and sat on the floor, still holding the phone in my bloody hand. Ava ran to me first. Mason followed. They crashed into me despite my broken ribs, and I wrapped my arms around both of them, holding them while they cried. I'm sorry, I whispered into Ava's hair. I'm so sorry you saw that. Grandpa hurt you. Mason's voice was small and confused. Why did Grandpa hurt you? How do you explain generational abuse to an 8-year-old? How do you describe being the scapegoat in a family that needed someone to blame, to steal from, to beat down so everyone else could feel superior? Because I didn't do what he wanted. But that's never going to happen again. I pulled back and looked at both their faces. Nobody is ever going to hurt Mommy in front of you again. Nobody is ever going to hurt you. We're safe now. Ava touched my cheek gently, her fingertips coming away red. You're bleeding a lot. I know, baby. We're going to the hospital. The ER doctor was a tired-looking woman in her 50s who'd clearly seen domestic violence before. She examined my ribs with practiced efficiency, x-rayed my face, cleaned the cuts. 2 fractured ribs. Broken nose. Concussion. She handed me numbers for women's shelters, domestic violence resources, a social worker. It was my father, I said, exhausted. Not my husband. Her expression didn't change. Doesn't matter who hits you. The resources are the same. She was right. I took all the papers, folded them carefully, added them to the folder I was building in my head. Evidence. Documentation.
Proof.
Ryan met us at the hospital. My husband had been out of town for work, wasn't supposed to be back until Wednesday. He walked into the exam room, took one look at my face and went white.
Who?
One word. Quiet voice. Dangerous tone. My family, but I've handled it. Handled how? I told him. The video. The lawyer I'd already consulted. The plan I'd been forming for months. Ever since Dad slapped me at Christmas for serving turkey instead of ham. Ever since Sophia told 9-year-old Ava she was getting fat and needed to diet. Ever since Mom took and pawned my grandmother's necklace from my jewelry box, saying she needed the money more than I needed sentimental crap. Ryan listened. His jaw tightened with each detail, but he didn't interrupt. When I finished, he nodded once. What do you need from me? Take the kids home. I have calls to make. The lawyer's name was Christine Walsh. She specialized in family law and restraining orders, came highly recommended from a coworker who'd escaped an abusive marriage. I'd met with her once to discuss options when I was worried I was overreacting. Maybe this was just how families worked. Maybe I needed to try harder to keep the peace. She answered on the second ring, even though it was nearly midnight. I'd texted her an hour ago using Ryan's phone since the doctor's orders said no screens for me. But this was too important. Emergency client from consultation 3 weeks ago. Have video evidence of assault. Father attacked me in my home. Tell me everything. I did. She listened without interrupting, asked pointed questions about video quality, whether their faces were visible, whether the audio was clear. Yes to everything. The camera I'd installed was top of the line, disguised in a decorative piece above the cabinets that looked like a plant holder. Nobody had noticed it. Send me the video tonight. I'll review it and file for an emergency restraining order first thing Tuesday morning. We'll also press charges if you want to go that route. I want them to face consequences. Real ones. Then they will. With video evidence this clear, the DA will likely prosecute. Your father could face serious jail time for assault. Your mother for contributing to child endangerment since she encouraged it in front of your children. The legal terminology washed over me. I focused on the important parts. Restraining order. Prosecution. Consequences. Things my family had never faced because I'd always backed down, always apologized, always tried to smooth things over. There's something else, I said. Financial abuse. Years of it. Stolen money, forced loans I couldn't refuse, my college fund that disappeared.
Can we do anything about that?
Possibly. Do you have documentation? I've been collecting it for 8 months. Bank statements showing withdrawals. Text messages from Sophia demanding money. Emails from Mom explaining why they needed to borrow from me again. My grandmother's will that clearly left me the necklace Sophia pawned. I even have the pawn receipt she carelessly left in my car after asking me to drive her somewhere. Then we'll bury them legally. The voicemails started Tuesday morning. 17 of them. Dad demanding I call him immediately. Mom crying about how I was tearing the family apart. Sophia calling me creative names I won't repeat. Uncle Frank saying Dad just got carried away, I was being dramatic. Family doesn't press charges against family. I deleted them all after listening to just a few seconds of each. Christine had warned me they'd try to manipulate, guilt trip, threaten. She'd been right. The restraining orders were filed by 10 a.m. emergency orders granted by noon. Hearing scheduled for the following week. The police report was filed simultaneously. An officer came to my house to take my statement and the video evidence. Officer Jennifer Medina's face stayed neutral as she watched the footage. When Dad's boot connected with my ribs the second time, something flickered in her eyes. Anger, maybe. She'd probably seen worse, but this clearly bothered her. Your father's going to be arrested this afternoon, she said, closing her laptop. Your mother likely won't face criminal charges unless the DA feels strongly about the child endangerment angle, but the restraining order will keep her away from you and your children. What about my sister? She didn't physically assault you, but we'll include her in the restraining order. She contributed to the hostile environment and made threats. Sophia's smirk. Her casual cruelty. The way she'd enjoyed watching Dad hit me.
Yes.
Include her. By evening, Dad had been arrested. The mugshot appeared on a local news website. Our town was small enough that arrests made headlines, especially when a supposedly respectable businessman got charged with felony assault. People who knew Dad as a church volunteer, Little League sponsor, prominent community member left shocked comments. Nobody knew what happened behind closed doors. Nobody ever does, until someone finally opens them and lets the light in. The preliminary hearing happened 72 hours later, as required by law. Dad's lawyer was expensive, smooth-talking, the kind who protected wealthy men from consequences. He argued for low bail given Dad's community ties, business responsibilities, lack of prior criminal record. Diana Torres, the prosecutor assigned to the case, countered with the video evidence, the severity of injuries, the presence of small children during the assault. She argued Dad was a flight risk given the potential prison time he faced. The judge watched portions of the video. His expression stayed neutral, but something hardened around his eyes. Bail was set at $50,000. High enough to be punitive, low enough to be technically achievable. Dad couldn't make bail immediately. $50,000 usually required either the full amount in cash or a $5,000 bond from a bail bondsman. But Dad's liquid assets were minimal. His money was tied up in business inventory, equipment, accounts receivable. Mom refused to take out a home equity loan, either because she finally saw the severity of his actions or simply wanted to protect her own assets in case of divorce. He spent 7 days in county jail before Uncle Frank posted the $6,000 bond. People told me later those 7 days changed him somehow. He looked older, weaker. Good. The civil lawsuit came next. Christine referred me to a colleague who specialized in financial abuse and emotional distress cases. Marcus Aldridge was a shark in an expensive suit who smiled when I showed him my documentation. "Your family's been financially abusing you for over a decade," he said, spreading the files across his conference table. "Based on these records, we're looking at approximately $50,000 in stolen funds, forced loans, property theft. The emotional distress damages could be much higher, especially given the assault and trauma to your children." "I don't care about the money," I said, then realized how that sounded. "I mean, I do. But that's not the point. The point is making them understand they can't do this anymore. Not to me. Not to anyone." Marcus leaned back in his leather chair. "They say the best revenge is living well. But second best revenge is taking everything they have and making sure everyone knows why." The lawsuit named everyone: Dad, Mom, Sophia, even Uncle Frank for his role in the assault and history of enabling abuse. We sued for recovery of all stolen funds plus interest, value of the pawn necklace, emotional distress, therapy costs for me and the kids, medical expenses. Sophia called me a week after being served. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail I shouldn't have listened to, but did anyway. "You're actually suing us? Your own family? Over a few dollars here and there? You're insane. Do you know how much this is going to cost Dad? Legal fees alone could bankrupt him. And for what? Because he disciplined you? You were always overly dramatic. This is why nobody likes you. This is why you never fit in. We try to include you, try to help you understand how families work, but you're too selfish to see it. You're dead to me. Dead to all of us. I hope you're happy." I saved the voicemail. Sent it to Marcus. He added it to the evidence pile. The criminal trial took priority over the civil case. Dad pled not guilty. Of course. His lawyer painted a picture of a concerned father trying to discipline an out-of-control daughter, a man pushed to his limit by disrespect and defiance. Despite the restraining orders, the harassment escalated in the weeks before trial. Christine called them flying monkeys, my family sending others to do their dirty work. Distant cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had my phone number. Old family friends showed up at my office, concerned about the misunderstanding tearing the family apart. Angela, my second cousin, cornered me at the grocery store, blocking my cart at the end of the cereal aisle. "Your father's suffering. You know he has high blood pressure. This stress could kill him." I pushed my cart past hers without responding. She followed me to the dairy section. "He made a mistake, sure, but don't you think you're taking this too far? Pressing charges, restraining orders. He's your father. He changed your diapers, paid for your braces, put a roof over your head." The milk carton in my hand was painfully cold. I focused on that sensation to ground myself. He also kicked me twice and broke my nose in front of my children. We're done here. But family doesn't press charges against family. Move your cart or I'm calling security. She eventually did, but not before making sure everyone in the dairy section heard her lecture about ungrateful daughters and how young people these days have no respect or loyalty. Ryan wanted to confront her. I stopped him. She's not worth it. They'll paint me as the aggressor no matter what I do. Mom apparently organized a phone tree because the flying monkeys kept reporting back. Women from her book club, her church group, even my old Girl Scout troop leader called with variations of the same script. I was being selfish. I was ruining Dad's life over a moment of anger. Families forgive. What kind of example was I setting for my children by refusing to reconcile? Mrs. Patterson, who taught me to tie knots and build campfires 25 years ago, was particularly insistent. Your mother is beside herself. She's barely eating. She's lost 15 pounds from stress. Is this what you want? To destroy your parents? Mrs. Patterson, has my mother told you what actually happened? A pause. She said there was an argument that got out of hand. He kicked me twice while I was on the ground, then grabbed my hair and slammed my face into the floor so hard my nose broke. My daughter watched the whole thing. She still has nightmares. Longer pause. Well, I'm sure there were circumstances. There's video. It's evidence in a criminal trial. Would you like me to send you the link to the news article? It has details of his charges. She hung up, didn't call again. But others did. The phone tree was apparently extensive. Eventually, I started sending everything to voicemail. Most texts were variations of the same guilt trip. Some were more threatening. Uncle Frank left a particularly nice message about how I should drop the charges or things would get difficult for me. That one went directly to Officer Medina and my lawyer. Frank got a visit from police about witness intimidation. The threatening calls stopped after that. Work got complicated too. Dad's business partner, a man named Leonard Shaw who I'd met at company picnics as a kid, managed to get a direct line to my supervisor. He called claiming I was making false accusations, that the charges were fabricated, that I had a history of lying and drug use. All lies, of course, but damaging ones. My boss called me in for a meeting, her expression perfectly neutral. I need to ask you about some allegations, she said. My stomach dropped. What kind of allegations? Someone claiming to be a family friend says you've been involved in drug use and that the assault charges against your father are retaliation for him confronting you about it. The audacity was almost impressive. As part of my security clearance for this job, I submit to quarterly drug testing. Every test has come back clean. Would you like me to request an immediate screening? Her shoulders relaxed noticeably. That won't be necessary. I told him I didn't believe it, but I had to ask. I appreciate that. I hesitated, then decided she deserved the full context. My father is facing felony assault charges for beating me in front of my children. There's video evidence. His associates are trying to discredit me before trial. She nodded slowly. Do you need additional security? I can have your name removed from the lobby directory. Make sure nobody can reach you without going through me first. The relief was unexpected. Someone believed me. Someone supported me without question. That would help. Thank you. I've been where you are. Different circumstances, but I understand what it takes to walk away from family. You're doing the right thing. Trial preparation was exhausting. Diana Torres met with me multiple times to review testimony. What Dad said. What Mom said. Every detail of the assault. How Ava reacted. Where Mason stood. Defense is going to try to rattle you, Diana warned. They'll suggest you provoked him. They'll bring up every argument you ever had with your parents. Try to paint you as the problem child who drove your father to the breaking point. Let them try. I'd been blamed for every family argument my entire life. Nothing they could say would be worse than the reality I'd lived. They'll ask about your marriage. Whether Ryan ever hit you. Whether you're projecting abuse onto your father. That one stung because it was so absurd. Ryan had never raised his hand to me. Never raised his voice in anger beyond ordinary frustration. Ryan's been nothing but supportive. I know. but they'll try to muddy the waters any way they can. Just stay calm.
Stick to the facts.
Remember, the jury will see the video. That's our most powerful evidence. The continuances pushed the trial back 4 months from the original date. Whitmore's strategy was obvious. Exhaust me. Hope I'd crack under prolonged pressure. Get too tired to fight. Each delay meant another month of looking over my shoulder. Another month of Ava asking when it would be over. Another month in legal limbo. The prosecution's case centered on the 6-minute video. Diana played it for me during one of our prep sessions, forcing me to watch myself get beaten. My clinical detachment shattered around minute 4 when Ava's screaming reached its peak. I can't watch this again in court, I admitted, wiping tears. I can't sit there while strangers watch my daughter go through that. You won't have to. The judge will allow Ava and Mason's identities to be protected. We'll refer to them as Minor Child 1 and Minor Child 2. Their faces will be blurred in the version shown to the jury. Small mercies. Ava was already anxious about strangers knowing what happened. The thought of her classmates' parents sitting on a jury watching her trauma had kept me up several nights. Charles Whitmore was exactly what I expected. Silver hair, expensive suit, practiced expressions of concern and disappointment. He requested 2 continuances, delaying trial by 3 months. Christine said it was deliberate, hoping I'd run out of money for legal fees and give up. But the state was prosecuting. I didn't have to pay for Diana or the trial. I wasn't giving up. Jury selection took 2 days. Whitmore rejected anyone with daughters, anyone who worked in social services, anyone who admitted to experiencing family violence. Diana rejected anyone who made excuses for parental discipline, believed children owed parents absolute obedience, or seemed receptive to tough love arguments. They ended up with 12 people who looked tired and slightly annoyed at being there. Perfect, Diana said. Annoyed jurors pay attention because they want to get it done right. Opening statements began on a Wednesday. Whitmore went first, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. This is a case about a family disagreement that escalated unfortunately. Gerald Henderson is not a monster. He's a father who lost his temper during a stressful situation. Yes, he should have handled it better. Yes, he regrets his actions. But felony assault? That's prosecutorial overreach for a domestic dispute that should have been handled within the family. Diana's opening was shorter, crisper. The defense wants you to believe this is a family disagreement. I'm going to show you a video of a grown man beating his daughter while she's on the ground. You'll hear his words, see his actions, witness her children's terror. Then you'll decide if that's a disagreement or a crime. I testified on day 3. Walking to the stand felt surreal, like watching myself from a distance. Whitmore's cross-examination was exactly as brutal as Diana predicted. Ma'am, isn't it true you've had a contentious relationship with your parents for years? We've had disagreements. Arguments? Fights? Heated disagreements. Yes. And isn't it true you've repeatedly refused to help your sister financially despite her needs? I declined to give her money when I couldn't afford it. But you could afford a $45 toy for your son. The implication hung in the air. Selfish daughter who chose her kid over her struggling sister. My children come first. I'm their mother. Even when family needs help. When your sister is trying to start a business, my first responsibility is to my children, not funding my adult sister's ventures. He tried to make me look cold, calculating, ungrateful. Asked about loans my parents had given me over the years, conveniently ignoring those loans-funded family gatherings they insisted I host or replaced money they'd stolen that I had to reclaim. Diana's redirect was brief. Did you provoke your father to kick you that day?
No.
Did you threaten him?
No.
Did you do anything that would justify him beating you in front of your children?
No.
The jury watched the video. They saw a 58-year-old man kick his daughter twice while she was down. Heard him threaten her. Watched him grab her hair and slam her face into the floor. Heard her 9-year-old daughter screaming in the corner.
Guilty.
Felony assault. Sentenced to 18 months in prison with possibility of parole after 12 if he maintained good behavior. Mom fainted in the courtroom. Sophia stormed out yelling about injustice. Uncle Frank sat stone-faced, maybe finally realizing his actions had consequences. Dad looked at me as they led him away. I met his gaze. Didn't smile. Didn't gloat. Just looked back steadily in a way I'd never been able to before. The civil suit proceeded while Dad sat in county jail awaiting transfer to state prison. Marcus Aldridge filed his case with surgical precision. Every count backed by documentation I'd spent months gathering. Count 1. Theft and conversion of $50,000 over 12 years. Every forced loan. Every borrowed amount never repaid. Every time they raided my purse or bank account. Detailed records, including the $120 in cash and credit card Dad stole from my office. Count 2. Conversion of inherited property. My grandmother's will specifically left me her opal necklace valued at $3,500. Sophia had taken it from my jewelry box and pawned it for $1,000. I had the pawn receipt, the will, and Sophia's text message bragging about the quick cash. Count 3. Emotional distress and intentional infliction of emotional harm. Years of verbal abuse, manipulation, scapegoating. Harder to prove but corroborated by text messages, voicemails, testimony from friends who witnessed it. Count 4. Assault and battery. This one was easy given the felony conviction. Dad was legally liable for my medical bills, pain, and suffering. Count 5. Fraud and financial exploitation. My childhood college fund, $25,000 set up by my grandfather, mysteriously transferred to Sophia's account the year she graduated high school. I'd found records of the transfer while gathering documentation. Dad had controlled that account. Sophia's deposition was particularly satisfying. Marcus had a gift for asking innocent-sounding questions that set traps every third sentence. Miss Henderson, how many times would you say your sister gave you money over the past decade? Sophia squirmed in her seat, glanced at her lawyer. I don't know. A few times. More than 10. Maybe. More than 20. I didn't keep count. Marcus slid a document across the table. Bank records. Text messages. Venmo transactions. I count 37 separate occasions where your sister transferred money to you. Amounts ranging from $50 to $1,500. Total of $23,640. Did she give you this money willingly? She's my sister. Family helps family. Did you ever pay her back? Silence. Miss Henderson, did you ever repay any of the money your sister gave you? I was going to, when my business took off. But you never did? Not yet.
No. No.
Did you consider these gifts or loans? The trap sprung. If she said gifts, she couldn't claim she meant to repay. If she said loans, she admitted defaulting on substantial debt. Gifts, she finally said. Family gifts.
I see.
And when your father assaulted your sister, you were present in the room? He didn't assault her. He was disciplining. Miss Henderson, your father was convicted of felony assault. That's a matter of legal record. Were you present when he kicked your sister twice and slammed her head into the floor? Her lawyer objected, but the damage stuck. Marcus had established her presence and tacit support for violence against me. Mom's deposition went worse for them. She cried through most of it, claimed she couldn't remember details, said she just wanted to keep the family together. Marcus was relentless but professional, walking her through years of enabling Dad's behavior, her own verbal abuse, her pattern of favoring Sophia over me in every conflict. Mrs. Henderson, when your daughter was hospitalized with a broken nose and fractured ribs, did you visit her? I don't recall. You don't recall whether you visited your daughter in the hospital after your husband put her there? It was a confusing time. Hospital records show no visitors under your name. Your daughter's medical records show she listed her spouse as her emergency contact, not you. Why was that? Mom dabbed her eyes with tissue. She was always independent, didn't want my help. Or perhaps she didn't trust you to help her? The deposition transcripts became part of the civil case file. Marcus used them to build a narrative of systematic abuse, financial exploitation, and my family's complete lack of remorse. Uncle Frank tried to avoid his deposition entirely. Cited work obligations, health issues, prior commitments. Marcus got a court order compelling his appearance. Frank showed up 40 minutes late, visibly drunk and belligerent. "This is all bullshit," he announced before anyone asked a question. "Family business should stay in the family. This girl's tearing apart 3 generations over some drama." His lawyer looked ready to crawl under the table. Marcus just smiled and started recording. By the time Frank stumbled out 2 hours later, he'd admitted to witnessing Dad hit me at least 5 times before, confirmed he never intervened, and stated outright he believed I needed discipline because I was disrespectful and selfish. "Perfect," Marcus said after Frank left. He just handed us evidence of a pattern of abuse and willing witnesses who did nothing to stop it. Settlement negotiations began 3 weeks before the civil trial was scheduled. Dad's lawyer, a different one than Whitmore, someone who specialized in civil litigation, made the first offer. $20,000. Marcus laughed at him. Counteroffer, $250,000 plus a recorded apology admitting to abuse. My clients refused to apologize for anything. Then we'll see them in court. With a criminal conviction, deposition transcripts, and 12 years of documented financial abuse, I'm confident a jury will award considerably more than my ask. The lawyer paled. He knew Marcus was right. Civil juries in our county tended to favor abuse victims, especially when children were involved. Second offer, $45,000.
No apology.
Marcus, $200,000. Take the apology off the table since your clients clearly lack integrity. Third offer, $60,000. We're done negotiating. See you in court. Marcus walked out of mediation and I followed, trusting his strategy even though $60,000 was more money than I'd ever seen in one place. "They'll come back," he promised me in the parking lot. "They can't risk a jury trial. The exposure alone would destroy your father's reputation completely. His bail costs $6,000. He won't want to pay real money for a lengthy trial. Their support system is fracturing." He was right. The final offer came the next day. $75,000 paid in full within 30 days, with all parties signing NDAs prohibiting discussion of the case or settlement terms. "No NDA," I told Marcus. "I won't be silenced about what they did." He negotiated it out. They desperately wanted the NDA. Mom in particular had been ostracized from her social circles, her book club, even her church group. When details of the assault became public, women who'd been her friends for decades stopped returning calls. An NDA would let her claim everything was exaggerated, that we'd settled quietly because I was being unreasonable. The settlement was finalized on a Thursday afternoon in a conference room that smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Marcus insisted on dropping the NDA requirement or going to trial, where even more humiliating details would emerge in testimony. Dad, still in prison, was represented by his lawyer. Mom sat rigid in her chair, refusing to look at me. Sophia glared daggers the entire time. I signed the paperwork with steady hands. $75,000 paid within 30 days. They had to liquidate virtually everything to make it happen. Dad's business sold to his former partner Leonard Shaw for a fraction of its value. Mom finally agreed to a home equity loan. Sophia apparently maxed out several credit cards. Their desperation to avoid trial and public testimony cost them dearly. "This isn't over," Sophia hissed as we left. "You think you've won, but you've just made enemies for life." "I've had enemies my whole life," I said quietly. "They were just disguised as family. At least now I know the truth." The money hit my account 28 days later, 2 days before the deadline. I immediately paid off our mortgage. $40,000. The freedom of owning our home outright, of knowing my family couldn't use housing insecurity against me, was worth more than any dollar amount. Second payment. Therapy bills I'd accumulated for myself and the kids. Nearly $15,000 for intensive treatment, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, family counseling sessions. Third portion, college funds for Ava and Mason. $20,000 split between them. Unlike the fund my grandfather set up for me, that mysteriously vanished. The remainder, tuition to finally finish my degree. The degree I dropped out of when the family needed me to work and contribute money to Sophia's education instead. I enrolled for spring semester. 10 years after my last classroom experience. Sophia's salon failed 6 months later. Without regular cash infusions from me, and without mom and dad's support now that their own finances were destroyed, she couldn't make rent. The business loan she'd begged me to co-sign for years ago, which I'd finally refused, came due. She'd been making minimum payments, barely surviving. Most of her equipment got repossessed. She moved back in with mom, who'd been forced to sell the house to pay the settlement and now lived in a two-bedroom apartment across town. Uncle Frank stopped taking dad's calls after the settlement. He only tolerated abuse when it didn't cost him anything. Life moved on. Ava started therapy and slowly began sleeping through the night without nightmares. Mason stopped flinching when men raised their voices. Ryan and I renewed our vows in a small ceremony with only our friends, the family we'd chosen rather than the one we'd been born into. I got a promotion at work. Turns out when you're not constantly stressed about managing abusive family members, fielding calls demanding money, recovering from the latest dramatic confrontation, you actually have energy to focus on your career. My supervisor commented I seemed different lately. More confident. More present. I set some boundaries, I told her. It made a difference. Understatement of the decade. Dad was released after 14 months. He's living with mom in her apartment, working part-time at a warehouse because his business collapsed. His felony conviction bars him from most professional opportunities. He never contacted me. The restraining order is permanent now, and I think he finally understands I meant what I said. Sophia tried to reach out once, 3 years after everything happened. A letter rather than a phone call or email, which would have violated the restraining order. She was finally smart enough to be cautious. The letter was full of half apologies and justifications. I never thought it would go this far. I never wanted Dad to go to jail. I was just supporting him because that's what families do. Maybe we both made mistakes. Maybe we could try to repair this if you're willing to forgive. I burned the letter in the fireplace. Ryan watched without comment, then handed me a glass of wine. Feel better? He asked. Getting there. Some people would say I went too far. That family deserves more chances. Grace. Forgiveness. Those people haven't been kicked in the ribs by their father while their children watched. Those people haven't spent decades as an emotional and financial punching bag for people who were supposed to love and protect them. I don't regret the lawsuits, the charges, the restraining orders. I don't regret pursuing every legal avenue available to me. They hurt me for years, stole from me, used me, finally escalated to physical violence in front of my children. The destruction I promised myself that night, standing slowly with blood running down my face, I delivered methodically, legally, and completely. Ava sometimes asks if she'll ever see her grandparents again. I tell her the truth. Probably not. She looks relieved rather than sad. Mason barely remembers them now. Maybe that's for the best. We've built a new life. Lighter. Quieter. Filled with people who treat us with respect and kindness. Ryan's parents, horrified by what my family did, go out of their way to show my kids what healthy grandparenting looks like.
I still have nightmares sometimes about that day.
The impact of Dad's boot. The sound of my nose breaking. Ava screams. But they're less frequent now. Fading like old scars. Last week I bought Mason a new action figure. The same one Dad threw away. We had to order it online because it's not in stores anymore. Mason looked at it for a long time before carefully removing it from the package. Can I play with it? He asked. Of course. That's what toys are for. He smiled. Ryan sat beside me, his hand resting on mine, and Mason started creating elaborate stories about space battles and heroic rescues. Ava joined in, adding her own characters to the narrative. I watched them play. These resilient little humans who'd witnessed something no child should see and were somehow finding their way back to joy. You did good, Ryan said quietly. Walking away.
Protecting them.
Following through. A lot of people couldn't do that. Maybe he was right. Or maybe I just reached a point where the pain of staying became greater than the pain of leaving. Where protecting my children mattered more than preserving the illusion of family harmony. Either way, I was free. They were free. And if that made me the villain in my family story, the ungrateful daughter, the vindictive sister, the destroyer of family peace, I'd wear that title gladly. Better to be the villain in someone else's story than the victim in your own.
New stories every day. You know where to find me.